morning, queens. We may have some kings in the building as well, or non-gender conforming. I'm so delighted that you're here. And even though we're going to be talking about the divine feminine, and you may think that that is just about women, the divine feminine actually is a part of all of us. And so we're going to be talking about how you can embody that so that you can grow your business, right? We want your business to be in flow. We want your life to be in flow. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so that you have an opportunity to get to know me and my work. And as I am getting this ready, one thing that I want you guys to know is that I have been a part of Detroit Startup Week for 3 years. 3 years. I am an unofficial ambassador for Detroit Startup Week. I have attended all week long. I'm based in Kalamazoo, but I've actually stayed in the city of Detroit in a hotel so that I could go to all the things related to Detroit Startup Week. And I'm super excited that I'm on the lineup because I really believe in this work and the fact that it's free. It's such a gift because we would pay hundreds of dollars for an experience like this elsewhere, right? And so I just want to give a big ups to the Detroit Startup team and just share my gratitude for allowing me to be a part of this sacred space. And I am going to call it a sacred space. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my slides with you. And one thing that I want you to know is that if there are questions that you have throughout our time together, as my beautiful co-host has shared, go ahead and drop them in the comment section, or you can put them in the question section. I like a lot of engagement. So at this point in time, if you'd even be kind enough to go ahead and put in where you're actually tuning in from, right? We want to know, where are you tuning in from so that we have an opportunity to get to know you. So go ahead and just drop right in there. I'm going to be taking a look at that in just a little bit so that we can call out who is in the space. All right, let's see. We've got one person that has chimed in so far. Wonderful. Southwest Detroit. Yes, I love Detroit. I'm based in Kalamazoo. I've always said that if I didn't live in Kalamazoo, I would totally live in Detroit. I feel like it's a second home. I have tons of colleagues there, tons of friends there, and Detroit has been so, so good to me. We actually used to record our podcast, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute, over at Motor City Woman. We're not doing that now, only so that we can reach women from more of a global standpoint based on our podcast. But I am loving Detroit in every way possible. You guys are amazing. We got Westland. Tracy's in from Kalamazoo. Tracy's actually one of my team members. So glad that you're here. Kego Harbor. I'm not sure where that is, but Bernice, thank you for being here from Kego Harbor. I really, really appreciate that. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it, y'all. All right. So we're going to be talking about tapping into the divine feminine so that you can accelerate your business. This is a little bit about me, and I have a tendency to talk fast. And so if you need me to slow down, just go ahead and put it in the chat, and I will make sure to be privy of that. Ultimately, I've been an entrepreneur for almost 13 years. It's crazy how fast time goes by. I operate a business called Change Agent Consulting. That's organizational development, so strategic planning, business planning, evaluation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, leadership development, you name it, we probably do it. I'm also founder of Be Well Beautiful Woman, and that's really the hat that I'm going to be wearing mainly today, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. I'm a licensed professional counselor and have been since 2010. I'm a certified professional coach. I also teach. Not only do I have several coaching clients that I work with, but I teach individuals how to become certified. So I'm on faculty for Leadership That Works, which is a national international coaching firm. I'm a business strategist. I'm a DEI capacity builder and trainer. Do lots of motivational speaking and facilitation and training. I'm certified in trauma-sensitive yoga and first-degree Reiki and yoga as a peace practice. I have a podcast, I blog, and then I have pending certifications in tapping as a Reiki master and teacher, in Ayurvedic medicine, and as a yoga teacher. So y'all, I have been busy. So one of the things that became clear to me when I was preparing our presentation today is that Be Well Beautiful Woman is truly embodying this divine feminine, right? What birthed this was this love that I have for wellness, this immersion that I've had in wellness, and how I've used wellness practices to really heal myself and to elevate my business. So Be Well Beautiful Woman, our mantra is all about wellness first, business second. So the reason why we say wellness first, business second is because, and this is what the Divine Feminine is all about, really pouring into yourself, being with yourself, and allowing flow to come from that place. In the traditional model, which is really rooted more in the masculine energy, and we're going to talk about that in a little while, what we learn is that we have to work harder, faster, in order to excel in business. And the reality is that, and I have some case studies that I'm going to share with you, that the more that we are positioned to pour into ourselves, and we're going to talk about practices for how we do that, the more we are in a place of flow. My very best ideas have come on my yoga mat. They've come when I've been doing journaling. They've come when I've been walking in nature. When I've actually been in a state of meditation, that's when my very best ideas come. So I want all of us to be able to work in a state of flow, not that we're not going to be working hard and we won't have to tap into that masculine energy, because we will, right? And we want both. It's like a yin and a yang, but I want to be able to offer an opportunity for us all to be able to prioritize our wellness so that we can truly have abundance and flow and joy in our lives, and that truly we have the ability to control that. So our commitment is really about inclusion and equity in our work. We fully immerse ourselves in all things wellness. So that's in part why I'm getting all these certifications and why I partner with really phenomenal women that are immersed in all things wellness. We are dedicated to providing you with the highest quality of programming within Be Well Beautiful. We do business planning and coaching, life leadership and wellness coaching, therapy, wellness retreats, boot camps. We have the podcast that I talked about, and then we also have our blog. So I want to talk to you. I want to give you 4 cases of women that have really tapped into their divine feminine, and they attribute it to their business success, accelerated business success. So Jessie Johnson, who operates Jessie Johnson Coaching, she specializes in helping spiritual entrepreneurs build 7-figure businesses. After 12 years of teaching math in NYC public schools, she was frustrated with the system. She founded her own personal development company and built it to 7 figures within just 2 years. Now we have Monica Shah. Monica Shah operates a company called Revenue Breakthrough. She's a 7-figure business coach who helps entrepreneurs build businesses that support their ideal lifestyles. She is also the author of Getting Rich, You're Doing It Backwards, Pause, 52 Questions That Lead to More Money and Time, and the Breakthrough Planner, a 90-day system for entrepreneurs. Then we've got Dana Wilde. Dana Wilde operates a company called Train Your Brain. She has 100,000 followers across 98 countries. She's the best-selling author of Train Your Brain. After growing her own business from $0 to $1 million in under 19 months, she shows people how to make money by being happy and getting paid for being themselves, which again embodies the divine feminine. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. And then lastly, we have Nasima McElroy. You may have read an article that was put out on Forbes and some of the other major publications in business. She has a company called Financially Intentional. She was formerly trained as a nurse. She paid off $1 million in debt and grew a 6-figure net worth in 3 years without living in deprivation, busting out of a cycle of scarcity, and stepping into thriving through the power of intentionality. And then I want to talk about myself. So I've been in business now, as I shared with you, for almost 13 years. And during that 13-year period, nearly, I have had to do next to no marketing of my consulting practice. Within the first 3 years that I was in business, I was operating a 6-figure business. By the second year, it was still in that 2 figures. But by the third year, I was in 6 figures. And it's been that way for since that time that I've been in business. So the thing about this is, one of the things that I know to be true is that the reason why I had such abundant flow under my practice, and I still do, is because a lot of the practices that I embody in terms of divine feminine. So a focus on relationship building, of course, from a masculine standpoint, making sure that I'm delivering really great results, that I'm doing everything that I can to be able to hold those results near and dear, but also because I was investing in myself, right? Investing in my own professional development, really focusing on self-help books, affirmations. I love a lot of quotes, and spirituality has always been very core to me. Now, I fast forward that to Be Well, Beautiful Woman. We have only been in business now since we rebranded for about a year. Before we rebranded, there was times of blockage that I experienced as an entrepreneur, immense blockage. Wasn't experiencing flow. I was working harder than I'd ever worked before. I was emotionally deprived. It wasn't making money. I was feeling out of alignment with my purpose, yet I felt like I was called to do it. And what I realized was that the reason why that body of work was not flowing the way that my consulting work had been flowing was because I was not tapping into taking wild care of myself. And the divine feminine is all about that. And it's not about being a female, right? Both females and males and non-gender conforming have both masculine and feminine energy. So what I realized was that once I tapped back into these wellness practices and really pouring into myself and carving out that time, that's when flow started to happen. And I want to give you an example really quickly. So more recently, we decided that we were going to do this virtual boot camp. It was the first virtual boot camp that we had done. We had been in the marketplace doing these in-person sessions, but you know, we're in COVID, we have to pivot. And so what I said to my team member, shout out to Tracy, is that we're gonna offer this and we're gonna do it totally free of charge. And Tracy has an MBA and she comes from corporate and she's trying to wrap her head around this body of work. It's like, okay, we're a for-profit entity, but we're not charging. And so we've worked around that and what it means to be a social enterprise. And so one of the beautiful things that happened as a result of this offering was that not only was I able to take on several new clients as a result of this free offering, several of the presenters that was on the lineup also was able to take on new clients. And it's a gift that keeps on giving. So for example, we had a Reiki master on the lineup. She continues to get business as a result of this free offering. Then a month later, we did another boot camp. We decided, and this was me being in my masculine energy, right? The free was me being in my feminine energy. We're going to offer this and we're only going to charge $5 per session. Not only did we get less of a response as a result of that $5 offering, even though $5 isn't a lot of money, we all know that, I was not able to take on any new clients as a result of that. And so when we're operating from a space of really being present with ourselves and what the world is calling us to do, what the spirit is calling us to do, that is actually a state of flow and a state of abundance. So let's talk about what divine feminine energy is. So the divine feminine is an energy that has been with us really since our conception. There's actually masculine energy as well, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Consciousness is basically divided up into the masculine side and the feminine side. So I want you to think about yin and yang, and we need both, right, to be in harmony. Divine feminine represents the connection to the part of your consciousness responsible for nurturing, for intuition, for empathy, regardless of your gender. And it's the aspect of yourself associated with creation, intuition, community, sensuality, and collaboration. So if you know anything about chakras, you have your sacral chakra, which is actually right in the middle of your navel. This is a practice that's not actually in my slides, but I want us to key into this. So that sacral part of us, and we have, 8 core chakras starting at the top of our head, all the way down to our pelvis area are where our chakras are. So we've got here, we've got over our face, our neck, the back of our head, our heart space. We have here right underneath our ribs, and then the sacral is right in our belly button area. So this is important because if we're trying to tap into the divine feminine, one of the practices that we can use is to literally take our hands and to put it over that part of our body and to connect the tips of our fingers and to literally just lay down and breathe. And try to focus just on your breath. So it's a really beautiful practice. And that's actually where creativity lies. It's where our sexual desires lie. It's where our energy lies. It's our birthing canal ultimately, right? But even men can use that same practice and to cultivate this feminine energy to be able to bring forward. So I want to take you now to this emotional guidance scale. And I know that you can't see this very well, and I apologize for that. I pulled out tons of different images, and all of them were super blurry. But go ahead and search for, once we jump off this webinar, the emotional guidance scale so that you have a sense of this. The reason why I'm bringing this to the forefront is because the divine feminine actually helps us to operate in our highest state. And in our highest state, the emotions are joy, appreciation, empowerment, freedom, and love. And we have the ability to make choices about how we're going to lean into those emotions in any particular time. And the more that we can operate at that highest level, the more we can receive the highest things, right? We can receive people that are vibrating at the same level as us. We can receive opportunities that are vibrating at our emotional level. So this is really important because you can assess in any given moment where you're at. And the lower down on the scale, for example, when you're operating in fear, in grief, in despair, in powerlessness, that literally immobilizes you, right? So the more that you're able to tap in and to have more positive emotions, and we're going to talk about how you do that in just a little bit, it actually gives you the freedom to be able to flow. That's where rapid manifestation happens. That's when we're really, really in a flow state. All right, so let's talk about the divine feminine versus the sacred masculine. And again, this is in all of us. So within the sacred masculine, what that looks like is logic, right? So when we think about our education, for example, like our formal education, that is a form of masculine, sacred masculine. It's left brain thinking. It's action oriented toward an end goal. It's about physical strength, the use of force. It's about seeking mastery, being introspective and closed off from the world, protecting what it is that you have. It's about providing, being competitive, being in constant movement, has a need to do. It's firm, so there's not an openness for different possibilities. It seeks material possessions as a marker of success. It's concerned with order, with structure. It makes decisions based on information only, and it's focused on the physical world and appearances. So there is nothing wrong with the sacred masculine. We need the sacred masculine. You've all heard the saying, faith without works is dead, right? So the faith is really, I believe, in the feminine space. The work, I believe, is in the sacred masculine space. And when we have the balance between having positive ideas about what's possible for our lives and working to create that, that is the ultimate balance that we're striving for, to be able to create abundance within our businesses and ultimately within our lives. So then on the feminine side, we've got emotional, right brain thinking. The action is oriented toward the experience of joy rather than the outcome. So it's really about embracing the journey. It's about having emotional strength. It seeks self-mastery, but for the sake of the greater good. It's extroverted, open, vulnerable, nurturing, receiving. It's cooperative. It's still. It wants to be rather than do. It's gentle. It's sensitive. It defines success by relationships. So relationships are prized over action. It's concerned with creativity. Makes decisions based on intuition, so that's sensing that I talked about earlier, and it's focused on emotional world and the inner being. So a lot of times as a coach, when I'm working with women, oftentimes they are so disconnected from the divine feminine that they're operating often in the sacred masculine. And part of that is that the way that we've been socialized. So we've been socialized that if we want to be successful, we need to embody all of these things, and oftentimes at the expense of embodying all of the divine feminine. And so what I want to invite us to do is to think about, how can we honor the sacred masculine while opening ourselves up more for the divine feminine? Because oftentimes we're already operating in a really progressive way within the sacred masculine space, but there's tons of opportunities for us to operate more in this divine feminine space. So Reena Kumar Singham wrote a book called The Magdalene Lineage, Past Life Journeys into the Sacred Feminine Mysteries. And she wrote, the rise of the divine feminine does not have to be at the expense of the sacred masculine. It is about the complete respect of the differences that the sacred masculine and divine feminine bring to a physical and spiritual union. So again, I'm not advocating that we leave the masculine energy behind. I'm advocating that we create more space for the divine feminine so that we can cultivate more of a sense of who we are, of what's important to us, of what our purpose is, and really what our directions need to be. This is the space where we can find solutions that are actually right size, that will bring us much more than what the solution could bring us, more in the logical space, more in that sacred masculine space. So here are some of the benefits of operating in the divine feminine. You have enhanced intuition, so your higher perception ultimately. You have sharper gut instincts. And so some people might say that that's your intuition. It could be your third eye, whatever you want to call it. You have greater flexibility and spontaneity because there's a freedom, right? There's more room for you to play, for you to discover. You have greater self-compassion from this space, increased love and acceptance of others. Your connection with the creator is within. So there's a book called Ask and It Is Given, and I've been reading it a lot lately. In fact, I'm going to read it again, which is all about how we are truly creators of our own lives. And oftentimes we believe that that things are happening outside of ourselves, right? That it is someone else's fault that things are going the way that they are in our lives, without this understanding that ultimately, whatever is happening in our lives is a manifestation of what's already within ourselves. So if we can tap into the emotional space that is going to help us to operate at our highest, it opens the door for us to be able to receive anything that we ask, which is why the book is called Ask and It Is Given. So the thing is this is the rule though, right? And we're going to use it from a law of attraction standpoint. So if you believe in God, you can say that that's a part of it, right? Or the creator, whatever you want to call it. We're going to say that is a part of that universal law of attraction. So first, when you ask for something, right, and you can ask for anything, and a vision board is not the only way that we can manifest things. In fact, there are tons of exercises in this book that help us to discover ways that we can manifest rapidly. And so let's say that you're asking for something, but your emotions are not at a high level to be able to accept, right? So acceptance is really important. And acceptance means that when we ask for something, we are trusting that the spirit is going to give it to us in time, right? In time based on when we're ready. But if we are not in a position of receiving whatever it is that we're asking, we can ask all day long for it, but we won't be in a position to be able to receive it. And so the thing about it is that oftentimes we are thinking about all the things that we don't have, right? It's, which is why comparison is really dangerous. And I'm going to talk about that in a little while. So we're thinking about what we don't have. So let's say that you want to be in a relationship, and every time you see someone in a relationship, you become envious, right? Because you're not in a relationship. Or let's say you are in a relationship, but it's not the most loving relationship. It's not really what you want. Your needs aren't being met. So every time you see a happy couple, you have resentment about that happy couple. Then you are going to be hard pressed to be able to move into a space where you can leave that relationship or repair that relationship in order to receive the love that you really want. So oftentimes, if you're focusing on the lack and you're not focusing on the possibility, then it's going to block you from getting what it is that you want. And the spirit is never going to give you something that you're not actually ready to receive. So we have to start with self. And starting with self requires us to be with self. And I'm going to talk about those practices in just a minute. Acceptance of others, connection with the creator within, as I talked about, more ability to enjoy the small things in life. And part of that is that the more we can practice gratitude, the more we have to be grateful for. I'll never forget, I was out to dinner with a friend of mine and her husband, and we were doing a gratitude practice. And I was like, oh, I'm so grateful for this meal. And I'm grateful that, to have you guys in my life. And, I'm so grateful that my business is flourishing, and I'm grateful to, and he says to me, like, damn, Demarra, like, why you got so much to be thankful for? And that's kind of the idea that we have a lot of times, right? It's like, well, that's mundane. But the reality is that we can be grateful for anything at any time. There's always gratitude in everything. It's all about our perception. So, because what we see is what actually is, and what we believe is what becomes. And so that, and really that statement is about the law of attraction, essentially, right? So again, starting with self is the most important thing that we can do, which is why that's the foundation, again, for having this kind of flow that I'm talking about. Greater receptivity to yourself, others, and life. Increased ability to let go. Acceptance is one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves. When we're trying to control other people, when we're trying to control outcomes, it actually blocks our flow because we don't have the ability to control anyone. And oftentimes, the more that we try to control something, the more the thing that we want repels against us. And so we want, and really controlling is within that masculine energy space. And so you want to be able to get into a space where you accept that, okay, things are happening the way that they are. I'm going to be at peace with this. And I'm going to reframe my thinking around what it is that I want so that I can get to where I really want to go to, so that I can fulfill the desires that I have. Deeper comfort with the unknown, right? Oftentimes, this is a part of controlling as well. A lot of times we don't want to take the leap because we don't know what the outcome is. But the problem with that is that we're never going to know what the outcome is if we don't actually take the leap. So we're always going to be at a place of no. We're always going to be a place of what it is that we have if we're not willing to take the next step, even though we're walking into uncharted territory. And the field of entrepreneurship in general is uncharted territory. There's all kinds of ebb and flow that happens in this entrepreneur space. There's tons of failure that happens in the entrepreneur space. There's tons of learning that happens in the entrepreneurial space. And it really isn't for the faint at heart. But again, if you're able to tap into more of this divine energy, it's going to help you to be able to rapidly receive more. Reduce anxiety, again, because you're not trying to control something, you have greater peace, heightened connection with your body and your sensuality, and then enhanced ability to relax, receive, and to be. All right, I want to pause for a second. We do have a question that just came in. Let me pull that question up if I can. Okay, it's not allowing me to, but I'm going to get to it in just a minute. All right, so let's talk about these practices. So here's some practices that allows us to tap into this divine feminine energy. So cooperation trumps competition. So you want to reframe your perceived competitors as your allies. This idea that anybody can teach you something, even your enemy, and even framing someone as your enemy is not necessarily serving you, right? And so if we can get out of focusing on what other people are doing, and it doesn't mean, of course, from a business standpoint, we want to be really clear about who our competitors are. We want to be clear about what our unique value proposition is in the marketplace, but not at the expense of our own livelihood, our own emotional space around what it requires us when we're focusing on other people. So all of us have had to have a jump off point. And if you're comparing yourself to where someone is at, that's been in this for X amount of time, that maybe they've been tapping into their divine feminine energy for the past couple years, which is why they've been able to have accelerated success. The idea here is that you want to be able to look for the gold nuggets in everything, right? So what is it that folks out there that are doing the kind of work that you're doing, what can you learn from them? How can you partner with them? How can they be in the space that you're in? How can they mentor you? Where is their alignment? Because if you can open yourself up to that, that actually allows you to receive some of the gifts that come from the people that are out there doing the kind of work that we want to be doing right now. So thinking about cooperation versus competition is always going to be your very best bet, and you're going to feel better as a result of that. You want to practice sensing. I talked about how some of my best ideas have come when I've been in a space of just being. The body actually knows long before the mind what's best for us. So when I'm coaching my clients, oftentimes, particularly my clients that are really strongly into that masculine sacred, I use a lot of body work, right? So tell me what it feels like in your body right now. Like, so if someone is saying, well, I'm having a hard time communicating. Okay, talk to me about where that is. More than likely, you can guess that it's in their throat chakra. So from that space, then they're able to see, okay, even though I'm talking about this from my head space, this is actually affecting my body space. So you want to be able to create alignment between the head and the heart, and you want to be able to tap into your body. But if you're always on the go constantly, if you're not pouring back into your cup, if you don't have wellness practices, then your sensing ability is not going to be there. It requires you to be still, to pay attention, to be with your breath, and to know that your body really has wisdom if you only allow that wisdom to be able to come forward. You want to be able to also silence your inner critic. So we all have negative self-talk. I don't care who you are, where you came from, what your identities are. We all have that inner critic. We all have dark shadows. So the important thing is to just recognize that they're there and to be able to reframe that thinking when it manifests, right? So if you're someone that have said to yourself, and you're really repeating a voice, for example, that maybe came from family or teachers or whoever that might be, first and foremost, recognizing like, this is a lie. This is not the true essence of who you are, because the true essence of who you are is actually light. And if you see yourself as light and perfectly created by the divine, which is your creator, the universe, God, whatever it is that you identify with, then the only thing that you need to be telling yourself is good stuff, right? I'm competent. I'm capable. I got this. I'm beautiful. I can take up space. And this is why affirmations are so powerful, because affirmations can help us to reframe our thinking. So, and the idea around this is that the more we practice this stuff, the more it rewires our brain, literally. And if you can begin to practice this stuff and rewire your brain waves and your thinking around this, then it allows you then to not have to work so hard, right? We call this a practice, and all these things practices, because we practice until it becomes a part of the way in which we just are. So for example, I've been doing yoga on and off for years, since I was about 18. And I grew up in a household where my mother did yoga. She was very much into the wellness movement. But I didn't start to embody it until much later. But it was a very sporadic practice. Well, now I don't go a week without practicing at least 4 times. And there's been plenty of weeks when I've practiced every single day, because it's just become a part of my day-to-day routine. And I recognize the many benefits that come from me practicing yoga. So it's not something that I even have to think about doing. It's just something that is a part of me. And if I fall off of that by any, because let's say that I'm in my sacred masculine and life is really crazy, and this was actually one of those weeks, even though I did have some yoga and some wellness practices embedded, it didn't feel like it was enough, then my body will tell me that. And it tells me that in all kind of ways, right? It may tell me that because I'm having back pain. It may tell me that because I'm more short-tempered. I'm not having enough grace for people. There's a lot of ways that our body tells us what it is that we may need in any given time. But the idea is that we want to be able to tap in long before we get to a point of operating on fumes. Because if we're in a place of operating on fumes, we've already moved too far away from the divine feminine into that sacred masculine, and we are out of touch with who we are. So control your thoughts. You ultimately control your life. Gratitude is golden. So there's a saying that says that we are most connected to ourselves and others when we are practicing gratitude. So we cannot tell people enough how much we appreciate them. We shouldn't tell ourselves enough how much we appreciate ourselves. People never get tired of hearing how much you appreciate them. And as long as it's coming from a heartfelt space, you can't go wrong with that. So anytime somebody does something for you, and this is why, you know, even this idea of like expecting things is actually much more of a masculine energy. In your divine feminine, you understand that there are gifts that you bring to the world, but there are gifts that other people bring to you. And the more that you can appreciate those gifts, again, the more you're going to have to appreciate. So this is not a practice that is something that is just something we talk about. It's actually a practice that allows for manifestation. So you've heard folks like Oprah talk about manifestation, and a lot of other people. And when you think about someone like Oprah and the kind of life that she came from and who she is today, no one could have expected Oprah to be Oprah. And a lot of these practices that I'm offering and really embodying the divine feminine is in part really how she's been able to build the kind of empire that she has, along with, of course, that masculine energy as well. So another thing that you want to do is become your own woman. I'm assuming there are no men on this webinar, but if there are, then also become your own man, right? Because the society has a lot of ideas about what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. And the question that I have for all of you today is, what kind of woman do you want to be, right? Because you get to decide the kind of woman that you want to be, that really honors yourself, that honors your values, that honors your partner, that honors every single role that you play. So it's important for you to think about where your ideas came from about what it means for you to be a woman, and how in alignment those ideas are with who you are and what you actually want. Because if you're out of alignment, you always have an opportunity to correct course and to step more into what that vision is that you have for your life. You want to treat yourself well. Your body is truly your temple. So the reason why this is critically important, of course, is because everything that you put in your body, from the alcohol that you consume to the food that you put in your body, to the extent to which you're moving your body, to the people that you decide to have in your life, to the times that you're saying yes to the things that you really want to say no to, and it's causing you strain. Treating yourself well is really about that mind, body, spirit connection. So if you're finding that you are the last person on your to-do list, typically, then you're not treating yourself well. If you find yourself eating and you're lethargic, you're not treating yourself well. So you want to think about because the more that you can put good things in your body and good things in your space, the higher you're going to be able to operate vibrationally, the more energy you're going to be able to have, because that's a part of you tapping into that divine feminine energy as well. You want to let it go. So the people and things in your life that aren't serving you, they deserve to be released. They deserve to be released for your sake and really for theirs, right? Because there is an alignment in that. So if you're holding on to possessions because you have some kind of, story that you've told yourself about that possession, And maybe it is like, it's a sacred possession because it's connected to, like, I have, things that I have for my grandmother who's no longer here, or for my father. Like, those are things that are really about the relationship that I have with them. But outside of that, like, this question around, would you be willing to give up your material possessions? How much do they actually mean to you? And when it comes to people, people can be quite toxic. And so part of you protecting your energy and operating your highest is making sure that you have the right people in your life to support that. And then you just want to be, right? The being with yourself is the road to expanding yourself. If you're not taking time to invest in your knowledge, to invest in your professional development, to learn from other people, to have practices where you can just have the space to think, then you are missing out on an opportunity to explore more aspects of who you are, because there is always more. We are like onions, and the more that we can be with ourselves, the more we discover about ourselves, the more we receive as a result of that, and that cycle continues and it never really stops. All right, so I want to end us here before I go into questions, because I want to make sure that we've got plenty of time for that. So we have this series coming up called the Healing into Power series. It is free of charge. The registration link is down here at the bottom. With everything going on in the world, we want to give the gift of healing, right, of being, which is a part of that divine feminine. And of course, there's that sacred masculine that's embedded too, that's going to be focused on action. We have some amazing folks in the lineup. If you are a woman, if you are a Black man, if you are someone who is Black that is non-gender conforming, this is a space for you. And this is a part of our inclusion and equity work. So this is what we have in the lineup. If you're interested in registering, we would love to have you, and you are welcome, of course, to share with others. But I wanted to offer it because I really felt like it was in alignment with this idea of balancing that divine and masculine feminine energy. And then I want to stay in touch with all of you. So this is my information for Be Well Beautiful Woman. I've also shared my consulting work with you all, my consulting contact information as well, and where you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. Yes, my last name used to be Gardner, now it is West, and that's why that is a part of my LinkedIn profile. And so I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen now. And I have a question here. So, and we do have a mail on here. Beautiful. Thank you so much. So thank you. These topics are on point. We were watching a movie last night, and the knight in shining armor made us feel that she was missing out, or made her feel that she was missing out. I feel motivated to get to a higher level, but I want her to feel blessed throughout the process. Thank you, thank you. Okay, beautiful. So that was a great comment. I didn't share who it was because I typically within the Q&A process, I feel like that might be a space where people want to keep their identity anonymous. And so thank you so much. But it is one of the males on our call today. And so I appreciate you being here with us. All right, so let's see. All right, so the recording is definitely going to be available. I'm so sorry that your wife couldn't be here. I'm so glad that you were here in her space. That is so beautiful that you're giving her that gift. We will have all the recordings, I believe, on the YouTube page for Detroit Startup Week. That's going to be next week. And so if you missed any of the workshops, if you want to see this workshop and share it with other people, you're going to have an opportunity to do that. All right, wonderful. Tracy, thank you, teammate. She put my contact information right in there, all the information on me. And is there other questions or comments that you guys have before we end this session?
I know a little bit higher up when you were in your presentation, there was a question. It wasn't really a question. They were requesting you to put the name of the book that you mentioned.
Oh, yes, yes. So the book is called Ask and It Is Given. And I'm going to go ahead and just type that in right now so that everyone can see it. And if you are interested in learning just more about the divine feminine in general, there are tons of books out there. I started to share some, like a resource page with you all. But I did want to just share with you that if you are interested in tapping into that more, then just do a Google search on, Divine Feminine, and you're going to see tons of resources out there. There is a book that I will share as well. It's called Pussy Prayers. Yes, that is the title of the book. And so it's a book that I read. It's a really short read, and men can also read it to really understand more from a historic perspective. And really, you have a lot of indigenous communities that worship women in part because of the divine feminine and the power in which we have. And so this is not a new concept. It's been around since our inception, and it's available to all of us to tap into anytime so that, again, we can create that flow in our lives, everybody.
That's awesome. I think.
All right. Yes. And Abraham Hicks, Effie, thank you so much for that. That is the author of Ask and It Is Given. And for some people, it is kind of a hard read because you're going to be in your head a lot when you're reading it. But if you can just stay open to the teachings and to get curious about, okay, what does this mean for my life? And continue to just hunker away at it as you go. Because I had to do it in bite-sized pieces. And again, I'm reading it again because this takes so much practice for us to get out of our heads and really get into our heart space. So we have to keep working it. So again, that we can get to a point where we don't have to work so hard because it no longer is a practice. It just becomes a part of what we do. Mm-hmm. All right. So I have a question from Effie. How can you balance your cycle with this work? And when you say cycle, I'm assuming, are we talking about your cycle? Like, what cycle are we talking about, sis? Okay, your period cycle. That's what I thought you meant. All right, so this is really good because I will tell you, one of the most challenging times that we have to lean into our divine feminine is when our hormones are out of whack, right? And so that's actually a time where you want to be, if you are like me, and if you are all over the place during that time of the month, it's critically important for you to even do more with your wellness practices. And if you're finding, in addition to that, that you are like this week, for example, for me was a busy week. I signed up for tons of Detroit Startup Week sessions. I had coaching sessions on top of that. I had team meetings. It was crazy and I was spent, y'all. So this morning I made sure to get up early so I could look at my materials. I worked out. I made sure to have my yoga practice. I reflected because I wanted to be ready, not only for myself, but to give that gift to all of you. So if you're finding, and there's going to be those weeks when you're like, it's game time and it's intense, you want to be that much more intentional about those wellness practices and during your time of the month as well. So I've actually started to track my period for this reason, because a lot of times, and my period comes like clockwork every 21 days, y'all. Every 21 days. It is here. It is on. It lasts the same period every time. And I am emotionally out of sorts. I mean, that's just the reality. And so by me tracking it, then I know, okay, it's coming. This is actually what's happening with me. And now I can lean more into my wellness practices. So Effie, my hope is that helped you with that, and that you're just much more intentional. You're doing more to support your wellness during those times. All right, let's see. The author's name did not show up. Yes, thank you. Okay, great. If you have any additional questions. Oh, it looks like we got maybe one more question. I want to be able to get to it before. Nope, I don't think there was if by chance you typed a question in here.
It was in the Q&A, and it was more so can you give me the name of the book? So I went ahead and typed it in there.
Beautiful. We already did that. We covered it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, good.
She just got both books. Look at that.
You are on it. And so Pussy Prayers, it's a short book. It's not the most profound, but because if this is your first time learning outside of this presentation about the divine feminine energy, it's a good intro, right? A further intro into it. But there are other books like Queen Afua, for example, and hopefully I'm pronouncing her name right. a lot of her work is based on the divine feminine. And I like her because it's another Black woman, and you don't see a lot of us in the space talking about this work, but we are out there. So you definitely want to be able to follow Queen Afua, and it's AFUA. And Tracy, if you get an opportunity, if you could drop that into the comment section as well so that people can see that. And I may just go and grab one of her books really quickly. So give me 1 second so that I can do that.
You're good. You got a few minutes here.
All right, great. So she's written several books, but this is one of her books. Here it's called Sacred Woman, and it's Queen Afua, so it's AFUA. Yep, and she has been around forever doing this work, and in all kinds of ways. In fact, she's doing some work right now in partnership with Black Girls Rock in Washington, D.C., some virtual opportunities. So if you follow Black Girls Rock on Instagram, then you're going to be able to tune in. I believe that she does these offerings on Sunday, and of course, they don't cost you anything because they're through Instagram Live, essentially. And speaking of social media, I believe that Tracy put it in there, but if you want to follow us on social media, we are at the letter B Well Beautiful. That's the letter B Well Beautiful on Twitter and Instagram. And then our Facebook page is Be Well Beautiful Woman as well.